Tonight on Reporting Scotland, as calls grow to clear those caught up in the Post Office IT scandal, the First Minister says it should be considered. Those who were wrongly accused, who ended up paying tens of thousands of pounds to the Post Office, say more needs to be done to compensate them.
It's been a total battle, and at times it brings the horrid, gut-wrenching feelings that you felt at the time when you were wrongfully accused right back to you.
Also on tonight's programme, an inquiry into the deaths of two people who took their own lives in Polmont Young Offenders Institution begins. The families of Katie Allen and William Brown are demanding change 5 years on from their deaths. The house builder Stuart Milne Group goes bust with the loss of more than 200 jobs.
So the maximum could be up to life in prison, depending on the history of the person.
US fugitive Nicholas Rossi faces years behind bars after being extradited from Scotland to the States on rape charges.
Coming up in the sport, one of football's greatest players, Franz Beckenbauer, dies at the age of 78. We'll reflect on his legacy with Scotland's Paul Lambert.
And keeping tabs on Nessie. We hear from the new keeper of the official Loch Ness Monster Sightings Register. Hello, I'm Laura Miller. Welcome to Monday's programme. It's been described as the most widespread miscarriage of justice in British history. And although the Post Office Horizon scandal has been public for some time, a TV drama about it has thrust it firmly back into the spotlight. So much so, the Prime Minister today vowed to make things right for the victims. Between 1999 and 2015, hundreds of people who ran post offices in the UK were accused of theft, false accounting or embezzlement on the basis of a faulty IT system. Some were convicted, others lost their livelihoods, some died trying to clear their names. In Scotland, the Scottish Criminal Cases Review Commission, which deals with miscarriages of justice here, identified 73 potential victims. 16 people have come forward asking for their convictions to be reviewed. In November 2022, 6 people were given permission to appeal convictions. And of those 6, 2 convictions here have been overturned so far. Today, the First Minister said mass exoneration here was worthy of consideration. Katie Hunter reports.
They can't be allowed to get away with it.
Myra Philp's late mother was accused of stealing money from a post office she ran in Fife. The family say they spent tens of thousands of pounds covering alleged shortfalls, and the compensation on offer isn't fair. Myra's mother Mary wasn't convicted, but she lost her livelihood. She died before the full extent of the Horizon scandal was uncovered.
It's been a total battle, and at times it brings the horrid, gut-wrenching feelings that you felt at the time when you were wrongfully accused right back to you. So, you know, a high number of people have settled just to get the Post Office out of their lives for that very reason.
Others were convicted. Rab Thompson was given permission to appeal more than a year ago, but he's still waiting for an outcome. Last month, he told the BBC about the impact that's having.
I feel angry and emotional, and also it's beginning to take a toll on my family because of the length of time it's been going on. I just wished it would just go away, really. I don't know if that's what the Post Office is hoping for me to just say, forget it, I've had enough, and we'll stop it at that. But I'm not going to give in. I'm going to fight to the end.
These so-called shortfalls, they're not real. Your system, it produces them out of nowhere.
This is the ITV drama that's highlighted the plight of post office branch managers who were accused of crimes like theft and embezzlement because a faulty IT system called Horizon made it look like money was missing when it wasn't. So far, 93 convictions have been overturned in the UK, 2 of those in Scotland. The programme has prompted new calls for all sub-postmasters and mistresses to be cleared, and quickly.
I think the idea of almost a kind of mass exoneration is one that is very worthy of consideration. So it shouldn't have taken the UK government this long, and as I say, a television drama, to prompt some sort of action.
But how that action might work isn't clear. Plus, Scotland and England have different legal systems.
We really just want it all to be over and done with.
A feeling shared by many caught up in this scandal, whether they have convictions or not. Katie Hunter reporting Scotland.
Well, our Westminster correspondent David Porter joins us now. And David, this is expected to be brought up in Parliament there tonight.
Yes, it is. First day back for MPs today in what is going to be a very busy political year with a general election in the offing. But tonight there is growing political momentum for those people to be exonerated who were wrongly convicted in the so-called Horizon IT scandal. It has been going on for more than 20 years. Between 1999 and 2015 in England and Wales, more than 700 people were wrongly convicted because of the Horizon scandal. In Scotland, it was slightly different. In England, it was the Post Office that was doing the prosecutions because of the different judicial system. That did not happen in Scotland. But tonight, a development, the Scottish Criminal Cases Review Commission has issued a statement essentially saying to people if they feel they were affected, if they were postmasters and mistresses or relatives of postmasters and mistresses, to come forward and actually speak to them to see whether their case can be taken forward. This was a scandal, no one denies that, but it's very, very obvious tonight that MPs want action and they want action quickly.
OK, David at Westminster, thank you. Katie Allen was 21 when she took her own life. William Brown, just 16. They both died within months of each other in 2018 at Polmont Young Offenders Institution. Today, a joint fatal accident inquiry into their deaths began. Katrina Renton has more.
Katie Allen was 21. She had been a student at Glasgow University. She was jailed for 16 months in March 2018 after she admitted causing serious injury by dangerous driving while she was over the legal alcohol limit. She was found dead in her cell in Polmont Young Offenders Institution 3 months later. William Brown, also known as William Lindsay, was 16 years old. He had spent time in care, but was back home with his mum. On the 4th of October 2018, he went to court after he carried a knife into a police station. He was admitted to Polmont when no places could be found for him in a secure children's unit. He was found dead 3 days later. There have been no criminal prosecutions in Katie and William's cases. The Crown Office previously found that a breach of the Health and Safety Act at Polmont materially contributed to the deaths, but it said the Scottish Prison Service was protected by Crown immunity. That means it is exempt from prosecution. Katie and William's families have waited more than 5 years for a fatal accident inquiry. Their lawyer spoke ahead of it opening.
It is simply unacceptable that it has been 5 long years since William and Katie's suicides to reach the start of a fatal accident inquiry. In those years, what their families now know is that there was nothing inevitable about their suicides. Their cries for help went unheard by a prison service that operates in a culture of impunity and arrogance because they know they are protected from prosecution by Crown immunity.
Today, the inquiry heard joint minutes of agreement. These are established facts in the case. Now, the inquiry was told Katie had a history of self-harming and suffered from alopecia and eczema. She was admitted to Polmont on the 7th of March 2018. By the 22nd of May 2018, it was recorded that there was a deterioration in her mental health. She was found dead on the 4th of June 2018. The minutes told that William had spoken about taking his own life on a number of occasions. When he was admitted to Polmont on the 4th of October 2018, he was put on half-hourly observations for reassurance and safety. The next morning, it was deemed there was no apparent risk of suicide, and he was removed from 30-minute observations. He was found dead 2 days later.
The court also heard Katie told her mother the day before she was found dead that she was berated by other prisoners and was terrified. The inquiry is set to last for up to 6 weeks. Katrina Renton reporting Scotland, Falkirk.
The Aberdeen-based house builders Stuart Milne Group has collapsed into administration with the immediate loss of more than 200 jobs. It comes after an attempt to sell the company by its chairman, Stuart Milne, fell through last year. Well, our reporter Phil McDonald joins us now from Westhill in Aberdeenshire. Phil, what more can you tell us about this then?
Well, Laura, this will come as a big shock to many. One of the North East's most prominent house builders collapsing into administration, but it's no secret that the company had been facing its challenges. It was first put up for sale in April 2022. That was put on hold in December that year due to market conditions, but it was put back on the market in July last year. But that has been unsuccessful. We know that 2 bids were made for the company, but both were rejected by the bank, and that has led to the appointment of administrators. We've received a statement from Stuart Milne this evening, who is of course one of the North East's most prominent business figures. He says he is devastated by this totally unexpected outcome of the sale process and that he's struggling to accept it given the profound impact it will have on employees, subcontractors, suppliers and customers. He goes on to say he tried everything he could to find a way to achieve a better outcome for the business and the people who depend on it. Now, administrators Teneo has confirmed the immediate loss of 217 roles, but it could be hundreds of other subcontractor roles affected as well. So it will be some time before we know the full scale of the collapse.
OK, Phil in Aberdeenshire, thank you. To some of the day's other stories now. And 2 people have appeared in court accused of murdering a man who was shot outside a pub in Edinburgh and Hogmanay. Mark Webley was shot just before midnight outside the Anchor Inn in West Granton Road. Grant Hunter, who's 32, and 25-year-old Emma McVie appeared at Edinburgh Sheriff Court. They were also accused of attempting to murder another man during the incident. The pair made no plea and were remanded in custody. 3 teenagers have been arrested and charged in connection with an attack on a 17-year-old Raith Rovers football fan. The 3 boys, aged 16, 15 and 14, were arrested after 3 others, aged 15, 17 and 20, were previously arrested and charged. It followed an incident after the Fife derby on the 2nd of January between Rovers and Dunfermline Athletic. Now, an American fugitive who has been extradited from Scotland to the United States could face 2 life sentences if he's convicted of raping 2 women. Nicholas Rossi is currently being held close to Salt Lake City Airport at the request of the US Marshals Service after arriving in Utah on Friday. The 36-year-old is awaiting transfer to nearby Utah County, where he'll face the first of 2 separate charges. Stephen Godden has the story.
At the edge of a town called Spanish Fork is the Utah County Jail. It's used to house suspects awaiting trial, and it's here it's expected that Nicholas Rossi will spend the coming months.
They get their meals, there's medical, there's educational things, there's religion, things like that to kind of keep them occupied, but a lot of the time it is in lockdown. They can average sometimes 20 hours a day in their cell.
Nicholas Rossi was arrested on the COVID ward of a Glasgow hospital when staff recognised him from an international wanted notice. It was the start of a bizarre 2-year saga where he pretended to be an Irish orphan called Arthur Knight in an effort to avoid extradition.
After his bail was revoked, Nicholas Rossi was held at Edinburgh's Saughton prison, where he complained he was taunted with the John Denver song Leaving on a Jet Plane. On Friday, those song lyrics became reality when he was extradited from Scotland on a private plane.
In Utah, he'll face 2 separate rape allegations dating back to 2008. The first case, in the city of Orem, will be heard in this court building. The second, in the neighbouring county, involves an alleged incident that began in a shopping mall car park.
It's a first-degree felony in our jurisdiction, so the maximum could be up to life in prison, depending on the history of the person and the underlying facts. The message we don't want to ever send is that you can flee from one jurisdiction and thereby avoid that accountability.
This case came to light when the alleged victim saw the publicity surrounding Nicholas Rossi's extradition case.
The nature of sexual crimes is such that while it may happen a long time ago, the injury that is often suffered by the victims and survivors is something that they never lose. And so trying to find a measure of justice is critical regardless of when it happens. It's just about now just waiting your turn in queue. That's it.
Are you a rapist?
No.
Under the guise of Arthur Knight, he denied the central allegation, which will now be tested in a US courtroom. The timetable has still to emerge, but if convicted, he could face decades in prison. Stephen Gordon reporting Scotland.
An investigation is underway after a school bus did a 360-degree skid on ice, colliding with two vehicles in Fife this morning. The Stagecoach double-decker, which was servicing St Mary's Primary School, slid down Chapel Road in Kirkcaldy around 8:30. Thankfully, there were no passengers on board at the time and no one was injured. Now, the new political term in Scotland started with a flurry of political speeches. In a year, we'll see a general election. The First Minister was making his case for independence, saying the Brexit-based UK economy can't provide long-term economic security. Meanwhile, the Scottish Labour leader appealed to pro-independence supporters to come over to his side. But the Scottish Tory party chairman hit out at both opponents, saying it was the same old stories, as our political correspondent Andrew Kerr reports.
The reason I'm shouting, do not push me, do not manhandle.
A vocal start to the new political year in Scotland. Pro-Palestinian protesters were at this morning's Labour event in Rutherglen, protesting against UK party policy. The Scottish leader was critical of the Israeli Prime Minister. Closer to home, the focus was on this election year. A year of change, Anna Sauer said, with this appeal to independent supporters.
So let me say directly to those who may have supported independence in the past or who may even consider it in the future. I don't support independence, I don't support a referendum, but I accept our country needs change right now. And so we may ultimately disagree on the final destination for Scotland, but on this part of the journey, let's unite to change our country and get rid of this Tory government.
The leader also said he would confront head-on the claim that Labour lack policy ideas.
So from the ancient borough of Rutherglen to the ancient University of Glasgow, and a speech from the First Minister. On this chilly winter's day, the political temperature is heating up.
Hamza Yousaf said the UK was the poor man of Northwest Europe, with the low growth, high inequality, Brexit-based UK economy. Analysis from a think tank, he said, suggested typical Scottish households should be £10,200 better off if Scotland was to become independent.
Indeed, given the failed UK economy, my overriding ambition is to demonstrate how we can build a new, stronger, a more productive Scottish economy with the powers of independence. Because that will mean higher living standards for the people of this country.
It was the Prime Minister who put the country on election alert last week. The Conservatives were critical of their opponents.
I think it's a new year, but the same old stories from Scottish Labour and the SNP. The First Minister has set out why nobody can trust the SNP and their fantasy economics, and the Scottish Labour leader is making out that the next election is already in the bag, when we know that the next election in many seats in Scotland will be a straight fight between the Scottish Conservatives and the SNP.
Many more speeches and policies to come in this long campaign. Andrew Kerr, reporting Scotland.
OK, now Amy's here with the sport. Hello.
Hi Laura, thanks very much. Good evening. We are going to start with the sad news from the world of football that Franz Beckenbauer, one of the greatest footballers of all time, has died at the age of 78. The German and World Cup legend had a nearly 2-decade-long career, a legacy rivalled by few. He won the World Cup as captain of West Germany in 1974 and lifted the trophy again as manager in 1990. The former defender played 582 times for Bayern Munich, winning the German top flight both as a player and a manager. Scotland's Paul Lambert might have played for German rivals Borussia Dortmund, but says Beckenbauer will always be remembered as one of the sport's best.
Really sad, I think, for Germany as a country. For the football world, it's huge because of the player and the stature he was. I was fortunate enough, I met him a couple of times from my time being there or being over in Germany, but it's a real shock. Maradona, Pele, Cruyff, Beckenbauer, that was the names, Bobby Charlton, that was the names where everybody grew up with. But it's another sad loss to the football world because he wasn't just a top footballer, he was an iconic figure of the world game.
He really was. Queen's Park, they are close to appointing a new manager. They're in advanced talks with former St Johnstone boss Callum Davidson. The Championship club hope to be able to make an announcement this week. Robin Veldman left Queen's Park in early December with Paul Neughton overseeing the last 5 matches. Davidson lost his job at McDermott Park last April after almost 3 years in charge. In a remarkable debut season, he steered Saints to a Scottish Cup and League Cup double. And sticking with football, and it was goals galore in the Women's Scottish Cup yesterday, and today the 17 teams in the draw for the 4th round found out who they'll be facing. Last year's finalist Rangers have a home tie against Dundee United. Partick Thistle will face either Queen's Park or Bonnyrigg Rose. Their 3rd round game was called off this weekend. Holders Celtic make the short trip to Hamilton. 9-time winners Glasgow City face Hibernian, who also have a good record in the competition. They have won it 8 times. It's Montrose against Stirling University. Spartans face Aberdeen. Championship side East Fife are up against Top Flight Hearts, and concluding the draw, it's Livingston against Gartcairn. To basketball now, and Caledonia Gladiators haven't enjoyed the best of starts to the defence of the one trophy the team has won in the last 2 decades, the BBL trophy. On Friday evening, they lost their opening match of the group stage by 100 points to 97 against Cheshire Phoenix at the PlaySport Arena in East Kilbride. And their long trip to England's south coast also ended in defeat last night. Gareth Murray's Gladiators lost 88-81 to Plymouth City Patriots. To boxing now, and Scotland's former world champion Josh Taylor says he plans to fight up to 3 times this year, including a potential rematch with Jack Catterall. The 33-year-old has not fought since losing the last of his 4 light welterweight belts to Teofimo Lopez in June. The Scot vacated the other 3 in the time between that loss, and as seen here in his controversial defence against England's Catterall in February 2022.
I want to try and get in 3 in this year, and then hopefully try and chase titles again. You know, I feel that I'm still performing at the best and I'm still at the top of the game, although I've had a couple of bad performances, but that's so what. Sometimes you have a bad performance and sometimes you don't, you know, it's just the way it is sometimes. But I do believe at my best with no distractions and no injuries or anything like that. I do believe that there's not a fighter that can beat me. So until I feel that I'm not performing in the gym and stuff like that, then that's when I'll hang the gloves up. But I really am still performing really well and doing things in the gym that I'm still learning and improving. So yeah, absolutely believe I can get world titles back and hopefully become a 2-weight world champion as well.
Josh Taylor there. And Laura, just worth saying that, of course, tributes from across the footballing world just continuing to come in for Franz Beckenbauer. And we're going to be joined by German football commentator Derek Ray on the 9 this evening just to discuss Beckenbauer's legacy in more detail.
Yeah, quite a legacy. OK, thank you very much, Amy. Now, it is an age-old question. Does it exist or not? We are, of course, talking about the Loch Ness Monster. 90 years on from the first modern reported sighting, a new keeper of the official sightings register has been appointed. And our reporter Chris McLennan has been finding out more.
It's a tale that has captivated generations and began back as far as the 6th century AD. Many believe something exists in the murky waters of Loch Ness, however others are sceptical.
I think there's a strong possibility that he might exist or she might exist. You know, it's a legend that goes back, what, over 1,000 years.
I'd love for Nessie to be a dinosaur. Wouldn't that be cool?
You heard the man. You have the contemporary record, you got the historical record, you got DNA. It's, you know, science.
Yeah, I think so.
Do you think so?
I'm not sure. There's many sightings have been seen and things. It's still a mystery, and I hope it stays a mystery.
Loch Ness. The monster hunt goes on.
Sightings of the famed monster have been reported for years, some faked, others bringing a little more credibility. But the time has now come for a new keeper to keep watch over the official register.
So my dad started the club back in the 90s. It's a really big part of my life. Everything has been Loch Ness Monster, and there's no doubt that Loch Ness Monster is real. So it's really amazing that I got to take it on and continue the legacy of the fan club and the register of sightings.
Thousands of visitors come each year to take in views like this, and that has a positive impact on the local economy.
I think Loch Ness is more than the monster, and there's a lot more to see and do around, but it is very much the thing that people know about to come to this part of the world, and yeah, I think it's good for the visitor economy.
It's more than 90 years since a whale-like fish creature was spotted here on the loch. Others have reported sightings since. But with no conclusive evidence, it seems the search for the Loch Ness Monster continues. Chris McLennan, reporting Scotland, Loch Ness.
Indeed, the mystery continues. And from one beautiful part of Scotland to another, I have been admiring this view behind you, Christopher. It does look a bit chilly out there, though.
Yes. Do you know, it's pretty cold this week. There will be some sunshine. There'll also be some cloud, but predominantly dry.
Good.
Thank you very much, Laura. Very good evening to you. We've had some sunshine today. We've also had some cloud and low cloud, some mist and freezing fog patches around, really quite stubborn to clear. And the dry weather, all thanks to high pressure situated overhead. And actually, if we look for the next few days, you can see it's sticking with us. So the week ahead, predominantly cold and dry, but there will be just a few showers at times. Let's take a look at the details. Here's this evening and overnight. We've got that cloud and low cloud in and around the Moray Firth. Bit more cloud in the east with a few showers perhaps, but generally it's dry. Clearest and coldest weather in the west. These temperatures in towns and cities -1 to -6. Some rural parts of the Highlands -8 to -10. So it's a cold start to the day tomorrow. Frosty, certainly icy. Black ice once again could well be an issue. And like today, cloudier in the east, sunnier in the west. So mid-afternoon, despite the sunshine, still only around 2 to 5 Celsius. With the thickest cloud, the chance of a shower, but generally it's dry. Best of the sunshine likely across the northwest Highlands. That -1 there in Inverness because we're expecting the fog to stay with you throughout the day. Cloudier skies across Orkney and Shetland. And then in towards tomorrow evening, that cloud just thickening further, becoming more widespread, a few showers in towards the southeast. And that takes us to Wednesday, more the same, perhaps a little more cloud around compared with tomorrow. Best of the sunshine around the west coast. Again, some showers through the Lothians and Borders. And through Thursday and Friday, more of the same. Largely dry, certainly chilly. Best of the sunshine on Friday in the east. And then Friday night, we've got a cold front moving in, bringing a bit of rain for a short time. But what happens after that is the winds become more northerly. High pressure shifts west. And with those north winds, never a warm direction, we'll start to see an increase in showers. So on Saturday, best of the sunshine in the south, cloudier further north with a few showers, the cold air digging in. And by Sunday, still chilly, but now with the addition of some showers, which with those temperatures are likely to be wintry. Laura.
OK, thanks, Christopher. Now tonight's main news again. The Prime Minister today vowed to make things right for the victims of the Post Office IT scandal. Hundreds were accused of theft, false accounting or embezzlement on the basis of the faulty Horizon system. The First Minister said mass exoneration here should be considered. And that is it for now. I'll have your late news around 10:30 tonight. Until then, from everyone here, enjoy your evening. Good night.